Today we celebrate the feast of Saint Benedict, the patron saint of Europe. Benedict lived in the 5th and 6th century, spanning those 2 centuries, and he was from Italy. And he turned his back on the worldliness that he saw there in Rome and retired to live as a hermit in a cave near Subiaco, paraphrasing from the lectionary. And disciples began to follow him, and he established 12 small monasteries. He then moved to Monte Cassino, where he founded the famous monastery there, or famous abbey there rather, and produced the Rule of Saint Benedict, which is known to us Catholics to this day. And he was drawing on the monastic wisdom of the Christian East, as well as earlier Western rules, and his own practical experience. So it's really important. Our practical experience of the faith always informs us, as it did Saint Benedict. He was proclaimed patron of Europe by Pope Paul VI because of his essential influence in the formation of Christendom. And so it is that Benedict is very significant in the Church Universal. And I say that because obviously Protestants should be recognizing him as well as Catholics, because he informed Protestants as well, because it was just one Holy Catholic Church at that period of time, thank the Lord. Here I'm going to read some of the texts that will be read in Mass today for this feast. There was a man of venerable life, Benedict, blessed by grace and by name, who, leaving home and patrimony and desiring to please God alone, sought out the habit of holy living. That's from the antiphon. Now listen, this is something else. We read this, and yet he desired to please God alone, seeking out the habit of holy living. And I suppose it's easy to gloss over that, but is that our desire to seek holy living, desiring to please God alone? A parishioner this past week suggested that perhaps in my talks I might be demanding too much of Christians, and I'm not quite sure where they got that inference from, and I'm quite willing to discuss that, because on these talks I might come across as being dogmatic at times, and I suppose I am, but I am very, very open to dialogue. And I love it when I get comments like that, because it shows, first of all, that somebody's listening to what I'm saying, and B, that they're processing it and responding. And I wish this was a two-way conversation. Obviously, if I was lecturing as I used to, then all of my lectures were open to discussion. And that's what I love, that dialogue that we can share. So anyway, here we looked at the collect. That was the antiphon. Now looking at the collect, putting nothing before love of you, we may hasten with a loving heart in the way of your commands, O Lord. So, again, this idea that this predominance of love for Christ, that God desires to inflame our hearts with love for him, because then as we love God, and as we worship Jesus, Lord of all, we will come into harmony with the purposes of God in our lives, in what is known as our secular lives. But I don't like that division, because I think everything we do, however mundane, changing nappies, going to the post office, sweeping the floor, whatever our vocation is. You may have a vocation as a factory worker. You may have a vocation. And we live in Birmingham, England, and here we've got many, many people that used to work in the Austin factory in Longbridge, and my next door neighbour used to work there. Factory workers, road sweepers, all these vocations are important and cherished by the Lord when our hearts are united to Him. And so let me just read from Psalm, in most people's Bibles it's going to be Psalm 34. The angel of the Lord is encamped around those who fear Him to rescue them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Happy is he who seeks refuge in Him. Revere the Lord, you His saints. They lack nothing, those who revere Him. Strong lions suffer want and go hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no blessing. And what a wonderful image there of the angel of the Lord is encamped around those who are working on an assembly line. The angel of the Lord is encamped around those delivery drivers. The angel of the Lord is encamped around those who are sweeping the gutters, emptying our sewage. All sorts of mundane things are not mundane when our hearts are united to Jesus Christ. And there's a lot of talk about inequality in society. I would offer that one of the inequalities we have is that we still look down on menial labourers as being somehow inferior to those with great intellectual abilities and so forth. And I think we need to really look at that and lift up and acknowledge and honour every vocation as a calling from God, as and when our hearts are surrendered to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Yes, we're not all called to be monastics, as Benedict was, but we can follow Christ as Benedict did in our hearts through our daily life. Amen.